From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on February 2nd, 2026 from South Carolina Public Radio studios here in Columbia, very cold Columbia. On this episode of The Lede, we catch up with some of our favorite statehouse reporters for a vibe check on the legislative session as we kick off week 4. We look at what's on tap, also get a look at 2 polls for the South Carolina Republican gubernatorial nomination, as well as fundraising numbers for several congressional races. Did I mention polls?
Yes.
There are polls here.
Okay, then.
You guys like those?
For sure.
Also, please check out the Statehouse Gavel at scetv.org/thegavel, where Tuesday through Friday, Maayan Schechter and myself bring you recaps, previews, big and small Statehouse moments, meeting schedule highlights, photos, videos, and more. The Lede also loves hearing from y'all. That's why we have our voicemail box set up at 803-563-7169. Leave us a message. Are you still thawing out? Give us a shout, 803-563-7169. Let's look at what's on tap this week at the State House. We have plenty of meetings going on, and the Senate debate continues on the DUI bill S52. Behind that is charter school accountability legislation and tax reform bills. So we're going to be moving and grooving. The House is set to take up the abortion pill bill, H 4760, and 2 hemp consumable bills. One would outlaw hemp-derived Delta-9 drinks, and another would regulate them like liquor. Let your lawmakers know if you like these drinks. Do you guys like your little party drinks? Up in Congress, the House and Senate are back, and we are under a partial federal government shutdown, so we'll see what the House does this week. It's looking like things will move, specifically with that Department of Homeland Security budget that's holding things up. On the economic calendar, the Federal Open Market Committee met last week and voted to keep rates steady. This came before President Donald Trump announced Kevin Warsh as the next chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank when Chair Jay Powell's term ends in May. Okay, we have made it through the first month of the legislative session. It's 106 miles to Chicago. We have a full tank of gas, half pack of cigarettes, and it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. That's a Blues Brothers reference, guys. AT doesn't seem too excited about it. He's my Jim Belushi. I'm Dan Aykroyd in this situation. So let's check in with some of our favorite Statehouse reporters to elaborate more on the legislative action of the first 3 weeks and what we can expect going forward. Also, what bills are pretty much DEA dead already? I know it's early, but read the writing on the wall. I spoke with SCETV's Maayan Schechter, the state newspaper's Joe Bustos, and the Associated Press's Jeffrey Collins on This Week in South Carolina. Guys, a whole powerhouse lineup here. And here I am talking with Jeffrey.
You know, if anyone thought the abortion issue was going to be settled at the point where the 6-week ban was put together, it's not. I mean, it is settled in the fact that I don't think there's going to be a debate on making it more harsh this year, on maybe a complete ban or anything like that. But what's happened is now there's a schism within the movement of folks that are against abortion. There are people that are okay with the 6-week ban. There are even people that want to go even further, the abortion is murder and that kind of crowd. And that's actually splitting these right-wing kind of groups up. And so right now they're not going to get anywhere, but I think you're going to continually feel that pressure from that group that's a little further right and wants a little more restrictions on abortion. We're going to keep feeling that pressure. So we're probably going to have hearings, you know, when bills come up and everything. It's never going to end, at least I don't think it ever really. I mean, I think it's never really going to be a settled issue. As far as what can be done this year, though, the one bill is probably going to advance through the entire General Assembly, I think, is you make the pills, the abortion pills, the pills that you can take and cause an abortion, you make those the same kind of drugs Scheduled 4, I believe it is, yes, where, you know, you have to sign for them and they're much more regulated, and it also bans you from giving those pills to somebody else, like you couldn't stockpile them and give them away or things like that. I think that gets accomplished, but yeah, I don't think abortion's going to be here for a while, at least if not at the foreground, then in the background.
And that is just because, like you're saying, Jeffrey, this schism, I mean, it's also just in math, too. I mean, we have seen both chambers get a little bit more conservative in their own ways. They both have supermajorities. So if you're looking at it like that, black and white, you'd say, well, they have these Republican supermajorities. Why can't this get done? But that is because some Republicans, some of their districts know that they can't really go beyond that 6 weeks, and that this is pretty much as good as it's going to get for some of them.
Well, and public polling and things like that. I mean, the further you get, the more restrictive you get on abortion, the less support it has overall. Mm-hmm. And I do think there are people that are, Republicans especially, that are good with the 6 week ban. They're like, it doesn't need to be discussed anymore. This is not an issue that's bringing us anybody into our fold. It only makes people, it only agitates independents and people that might be in between and might be willing to come to our side. So, I think that, the folks that support the 6 week ban would be glad to be done with it. But again, you're always going to have that pressure because there's people that believe that this is a moral cause. And, if you believe it's a moral cause, those folks, you're not going to convince them to come over to your side.
True. And Maya, when we're talking about, how much time we have left, we're starting off week 4 next week. There's only so much time left until we get to the second Thursday in May when we end Sine Die. But one of those big issues like abortion is taxes, right? That's something we always hear about. Folks want to get down to a 0% income tax. Well, that's a far way away. A lot of people are talking about that on the gubernatorial campaign trail. Reality is a little bit different right now with what we're seeing in terms of legislation moving through the State House. Talk to us about what we're seeing right now when it comes to reducing personal income taxes as well as property taxes, which are a bit more complex when it comes to what they can and can't do.
Right. So the income tax bill, which takes down the top rate to about 5.39% from 6%, and then also for those who are earning less than $30,000 would bring up the income tax. I mean, the argument from particularly House leaders, but I think most state House leaders, is many South Carolinians are not paying state income taxes. Now, on the other side of that is state income tax revenue makes up a very, very healthy portion of the state's general fund, which is, the significant pot of money for the state budget. The income tax bill has already passed the House. It has moved rather quickly through the Senate. We already saw the Senate Finance Committee advance that out of committee and onto the floor. At the same time, Senate Finance Chairman Harvey Peeler has proposed his own kind of parallel track bill. It's the homestead exemption bill. It would actually now, they amended it. They pushed it down to 60. They brought it back up to 65, and then the exemption would be $150,000. When we've talked to Chairman Peeler about just the fact that these two bills have kind of run at the same time, it's clear that there has been a bit of a message to the House that, look, we just passed your income tax bill. We didn't make one change to it. We're going to have a property tax bill running at the same time. Just think about that, right? Now, we talked to Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey, who said that this is really the first time in a long time that senators, particularly those like we think of Senator Sean Bennett, who very, very passionate about tax policy, this is really going to be the first time that they're going to be able to chew through a very complicated, complex tax bill. And so, again, it being the first time, there are potentials that these bills do slightly change. Now, if the Senate can kick the income tax bill out of the Senate without changing it, it'll go to the governor. Kind of remains to be seen, I think, whether the House decides to tweak the homestead exemption bill. Again, for both chambers, this is kind of a big moment because we really haven't seen a lot of tax policy debate. And it is very complicated. And it is complicated to then go home and talk to your constituents about what the legislature has done. So, yeah, I think both have a really good chance this year. I wasn't sure I could say that maybe last year that income tax was going to be signed by the governor. I think there is a good chance that they do deliver these bills to the governor's desk before he leaves. But if they will look exactly the way they look right now, hard to say. I do think the income tax has a better chance of being where it's at right now, because as even Senate staff have mentioned, it's very difficult to do anything to taxes without having to ding somebody. Everybody's taxes, it's all different. So I think they've tried to figure out a way to ensure that people perhaps don't see their taxes rise, but there is going to be a portion of the population that does see that.
Yeah. It sounds like we probably need another study committee to take care of all this.
Your words, not mine.
No. We'll see where it goes. Joe, we had a short week this week due to winter weather. We might have another short week next week if we all get snow here in the capital city. But there's been a lot of movement going on with some controversial social issues. Again, the calendar for the House is very small right now. There's really nothing on there, but they've been getting some bills through the House Judiciary Committee, including this one that would codify a proviso dealing with bathroom usage in public schools and universities and their related facilities. Folks who they have to use bathrooms that correspond with their sex assigned at birth, essentially. So it's dealing with transgender individuals particularly. So tell us about that bill. It just got passed in the House on Thursday. What its future's looking like, and really maybe elaborate a little bit more on what it does.
So this is one of those bills that's good for the Republican primary voter. Get that out of the way. You got something you could show voters back home that, hey, we're addressing the transgender issues. So they require people to use the bathroom of their gender at birth. And one thing that I found interesting is it was 96 members voted for it in the House. So that means some Democrats crossed over. And there was a key provision that was added late requiring each public school and each higher education institution to have a single stall or single user facility on their campuses. So that will help make it a little bit more palatable. This proviso that's in the budget right now is under a lawsuit. It was the Attorney General tried to get all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court declined to take it up. It deals with a Berkeley County student who wanted to use, I believe, the boys' restroom. That student has since withdrawn, but the proviso is still being challenged. So if this became law, it most likely would be challenged. There probably would be a lawsuit. We would see this in court. Who knows if this would ever actually go into effect.
Yeah, and then get to the Senate, too. I mean, then where it goes in the Senate is going to be up in the air, too.
I mean, how much time does the Senate have to really take up this type of issue, or is this just a bill that the House is putting up because everyone in there is up for re-election this year?
So. And I guess a way to cover it, too, is that they'll just put a proviso in the budget, too, if this does get stuck, and just kind of keep that going like they've been doing since 2024. And those provisos are just one-year bills, but again, this would codify that. Jeffrey, over in the Senate debate, continue for a second week this week on the DUI bill S52, which would strengthen penalties specifically for repeat offenders of driving under influence. This is a priority of Senate leadership. They dropped that on us at the beginning of the month. What's going on with this bill? Why is it taking so long? I know it's not easy to legislate, especially when you have a bunch of lawyers in the chamber talking about how this might affect their practices, but also what are the ins and outs of this bill that they're really focused on?
South Carolina DUI law is very complicated. It's also not very effective. I mean, less than half of all DUI cases end in a conviction in this state. So, that's all part of it that they're not, that they're trying to fix. So, right now what they're looking at is increasing the penalties both on the first offense end and also for the people that are repeat offenders. One thing that's very important to them is now, driving while impaired isn't just alcohol. So they're trying to get, blood tests in there because you can't test for things like marijuana or drugs without doing blood tests. And so part of the thing is you're also trying to make the penalties worse for people that refuse to take a breath test or refuse to take the blood test. So those penalties are more, in fact, one thing that they're doing is if you refuse to take a blood test or a breath test, then they could tack something extra on your sentence at the end if you're convicted. So just those are the kinds of things they're working out. And it's one of those Senate bills that just takes time to get everybody on the same page and to get it all together. But it's important because South Carolina's DUI laws have so many different odd little parts to them. Like, you're required to keep the offender on your dashboard camera or whatever camera that you're using the entire time. And so if someone's drinking and they stumble off, somebody very drunk stumbles off camera, defense attorney can use that. And in South Carolina, there's no requirement, especially like for the first offense, that it be prosecuted by an attorney, a prosecuting attorney. It can be, sometimes it's the trooper who pulled the person over or the police officer that ends up going up against the defense attorney. So these are all things they're trying to trim out and figure out and fix. So hopefully maybe next week they'll get that together. Yeah, it's giving big tort reform vibes from last session, but of course this is also building on that liquor liability legislation that got implemented into law. And then also we did see some toughening of DUI laws in the past, I think 2024 with interlock devices too. So it's continuing because it is still such a problem. And you mentioned interlock devices. That's one of the things too. If you refuse to take a breathalyzer test, they can put an interlock device on your vehicle, which makes it a lot harder to, end up, that becomes a much more complicated issue of getting places and stuff like that. But I mean, ultimately, it's one of those things that everyone always talks about needing to fix here. We'll see if they can get this across the finish line. Yeah, it's a lot of ins and outs there. Let's see, Mayan, we're talking about so many different things too. Another priority of leadership was dealing with SCDOT. Of course, everyone loves talking about roads and bridges. It's a lot. It's a very complicated beast, especially when you see just how many roads are maintained by the SCDOT. I think like 44,000 miles, like the fourth largest system in the country for such a small state. But of course, everyone complains about the roads and bridges, but there is $7 billion worth of work underway right now in the state under contract. But a big issue is funding, right? Because we saw the gas tax increase in 2017, but
Since then, we've seen inflation, we've seen labor costs, construction costs going up, and now we're seeing two bills going through the House and the Senate right now in terms of ways to reform DOT, ways to get more revenue to come in. The House just dropped their version of the bill, the Senate dropped theirs previously. What do you see going on here? Is it a good sign to see both chambers working actively together on a similar bill in a sense, and what that might mean going forward?
Yeah, it probably is great that both chambers are actively prioritizing legislation and are slightly on the same page, right, as we head into kind of the thick of the legislative session. As you mentioned, everybody talks about roads, and it's not just a popular item during an election year. It is probably the number one complaint that legislators say they get all the time, constituents calling up about some pothole or some road that hasn't been fixed in years. Both bills seek to try to mitigate some of that, quicken the pace of infrastructure construction, respond to some of these inflationary costs and some of these labor costs that we've seen. But additionally to that, congestion. There are so many areas in the state. We talk about how fast growing the state is. I think we're over 5.5 million people right now, which is bonkers. We're going to be
Slow down.
We're going to be over 6
Yeah.
We're going to be over 6 million, 6.6 million by 2040. Congestion is a massive problem. It's a massive problem for every single South Carolinian and people who come into the state. And so this is a very, very large, comprehensive bill that tries in many ways to answer all of these questions. But alongside talking about electric vehicles, raising fees on those, they are very low, among the lowest in the Southeast, trying to figure out congestion, tolling, kind of those HOV fast-paced lanes that you have in some other major cities, including Atlanta. I think one of the big differences between these two bills is the House wants to make the DOT secretary a cabinet position, somebody who has to actually answer to the governor, of course, with advice and consent of the Senate, so they would have a role still, but answer to the governor. The Senate version does not have that. I do think that probably the House and the Senate are going to find some very similar things within both that they like. So I do think that this, not to try and find a roads pun or
Here we
construction
go.
pun or something.
Lay it down.
I think they're
Green
on.
light.
I think they're on the same track to probably become law this year. There's going
It's
to
not
be
a one-way street.
Not a one-way street. I think
Are there
there's
potholes?
there are always going to be potholes in a
Okay.
legislative debate, Jeffrey, as you know. I think some of the contention may come over making the DOT secretary a cabinet position, but honestly, there may be a lot of support that creeps up about that. This is going to be a similar, I think, debate similar to DUI or tort reform. It's going to take a long time because, again, roads are something that are personal to every single lawmaker. They're going to want to talk about their CTCs. They're going to want to talk about their local roads that they want to become state or vice versa.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a lengthy debate. It's probably going to happen, it appears, maybe toward the latter end of the session, or at least when both groups. We are going to have some kind of negotiating happening. I do not see this avoiding that particular process point. But it is, it's a good sign, I guess, in terms of collaborating, that both sides do have bills that do have very similar targets and some similar information in it as well.
And it brings back some of those debates during the 2017 gas tax debate, 2016 as well. I mean, looking at that, and that, of course, was raising the gas tax, which was way more controversial than what we're talking about in terms of some of these fees.
Right.
And there was also restructuring involved there, too. So it seems like every couple of years now we're doing this where everyone's like, well, maybe we can tweak this and do that, but also how do we get more money in here, too? So that's where we're at right now.
And I think it's important to emphasize that the gas tax being raised is not part of this conversation.
Yes.
We really don't know yet exactly how roads funding is going to go. The bills that have been proposed by both the House and the Senate do not deal with funding. That'll start in the House Ways and Means Committee. We do know that the governor has proposed over $1 billion to fix roads. That is probably unlikely to happen. The House Ways and Means Chairman, Bruce Bannister, has said that is probably too much. Now, we do expect millions and millions of dollars to go to roads. And certainly that will hopefully complement some of the legislation that'll be coming across their desks.
Catch that full episode on youtube.com/@SCETV News. You can always watch Twisk Fridays at 7:30 p.m. and Sundays at 1:30 p.m. on SCETV. Let's jump on the campaign trail. This music to my ears. All right, let's look at some Republican gubernatorial primary reporting.
All right.
We are 18 weeks away from the June 9th primary. not a drill. Again, we have open primaries in South Carolina, so you don't have to register by party in the state, which means you can vote in the Republican or Democratic primary. It's up to you. You just have to be registered to vote, which you can do at scvotes.org. Yes, everything you want to know about voting, primaries, elections at scvotes.org. But I promised you polls. And here we go. We've seen a few polls, which we always take with a grain of salt. Little polls, big polls, small polls. But who doesn't love a little horse race update, huh? But again, we're really trying to avoid a campaign's own internal polling because it's always a little skewed. But first up, Trafalgar Group conducted a poll between January 15th and January 20th, surveying 1,076 likely Republican primary voters with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette is statistically tied with Attorney General Alan Wilson, 22% to 20%. Congresswoman Nancy Mace is at 17% and Congressman Ralph Norman at 10%. But here's the biggest one. 29% are undecided. Are you one of them? Question mark? Let us know. We're doing our own poll. Would you guys want me to be governor? Moving to another poll, Palmetto Promise Institute conducted a poll in December among 800 likely 2026 Republican primary voters and found a constant. 1/3 of voters are still undecided. Wow, you guys keeping it real. Now, this poll, which did not give a margin of error, sus, put Wilson at 22.5%, Evette at 17%, Mace at 13%, and Norman at 13%. So things changed. That was a December poll. The other one was from mid-January. Things are tightening up a little bit, but at the same time, not at all. One of those people from the polls, Congressman Ralph Norman, said he would eliminate earmarks as governor. Pork! Down! God, they're everywhere! Wild hogs! In a press release, he said, quote, "The tax and spend legislature will be reined in when I am governor so that we can cut our taxes, fix our roads, and improve our education. In recent years, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on wasteful projects, including things like horse races and food and wine festivals. These things do not represent core functions of governments." Quote. Looking at the Senate, we're going to look at some fundraising numbers. In the fourth quarter, Senator Lindsey Graham's main campaign account raised $250,000 for a total of $1.1 million across all fundraising entities per the campaign. The campaign spent close to $2 million for the quarter, leaving him with a cool $13.4 million on hand with just over 4 months until the primary. Fellow Republican Mark Lynch raised $103,000 and spent $332,000, leaving him with $4.5 million on hand. Just a note, he loaned himself $5 million. Speaking of Lynch, he received the endorsement of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, former Director of National Intelligence under President Donald Trump. Paul Dans, another Republican challenging Graham, raised $109,000, spent $119,000, and has $304,000 on hand. He has some $580,000 in debt. Dr. Annie Andrews, who is a Democrat running in this race, raised $1.4 million and spent $1 million and has close to $1.6 million on hand. Okay, a lot going on with this spicy race. Let's look at the Republicans running in the 1st Congressional District, talking about that fourth quarter fundraising, and continue with some more numbers. Dr. Sam McCown raised $73,300, spent $124,000, and has $1.1 million on hand. He loaned himself $1.2 million. State Representative Mark Smith raised $83,000, spent $83,000, and has $514,000 on hand. He's loaned himself $300,000. Charleston County Councilwoman Jenny Honeycutt raised $143,000, spent $15,000, and has $138,000 on hand. No loans. Alex Pelbeth raised $50,000, spent $90,000, and has $130,000 on hand. And James Byers raised $30,400, spent $14,000, and has $66,000 on hand. So the little smattering there, no clear winner, I would say, based on these loans and these fundraisings. Looking at SCO1 Democrats, Mac DeFord, he raised $116,000, spent $76,000, and has $91,000 on hand. Myra Rivera Vasquez raised $43,000, spent $36,000, and has $33,000 on hand. And Nancy LaCour, who launched her candidacy on January 19th, obviously did not have to file, but her campaign said that the 35-year Navy veteran brought in donations from more than 10,000 unique individuals in less than 10 days, with an average contribution of just $37.45. LaCour is a mother of 6, and she reached a 3-star admiral and the chief of Navy Reserve before she was fired without cause last August by Department of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And in the 5th congressional district race, State Senator Wes Clymer is dominating. In the 4th quarter, he raised $150,000, spent $65,000, and has $488,000 on hand. No more numbers, that was it. A lot of numbers. Hope you guys kept track. There will be a pop quiz in the wind down section. I'm sorry. Arrange the top earners by last name. Welcome to the wind down section. Our little break from the news. You're here with me and A.T. Shirley,
Good intro,
podcast
baby.
producer.
We're not doing it
We're
again.
glad you're here,
It
though.
stays, it
Where
stays.
it's status. I landed that plane.
Yeah,
I can land a plane.
You did so good, bud.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, we're here
Oh,
in the
hey,
White
Wes.
House. Gavin, we survived
We are
a
survivors.
snowmageddon.
Oh my God.
Yeah. How many times can it happen, but we still call it a 1,000-year thing? You know what I mean?
It was fine. It was some good snow. Good snow.
It was not good snow.
It was good enough. It was a good covering. It wasn't like oh, here's half an inch. It was good.
The first inch of it bounced, which is a bad sign for snow. Okay?
Sure.
You don't want to hear it hitting the ground. That's
Bong,
bad.
bing,
It was
bong,
boing, dong, dong, dong. Yep. It wasn't good. But then around 10 o'clock, I will say, we started to get some real snow.
Started sticking around.
But what would we say here? Maybe 4 inches in Columbia?
I would say that.
Maybe. I would say
in a good
probably
spot.
less.
Yeah.
I'm saying no snow drift accounting.
I was
okay?
looking at my windshield when I dusted it off, and that was under a tree, and it looked pretty much like a 3.5 inch.
It was a
but,
3.5
yeah.
incher.
But then I went to the State House grounds. I took the Subaru out in her first snow,
Ooh,
all-wheel
baby.
drive.
Oh, yeah.
Complete cakewalk for the Subaru. Guys.
No, it was easy work.
Because it wasn't that ice. I mean, I wouldn't have gone out if it was iced.
No.
And even today, there's no ice on the ground. But we're off. We have a snow day today, but we're still here for you. That's
Gavin
what's
and I
important.
defying the government's orders.
I'm just
okay?
glad that you're safe. I'm safe. We're all safe. It's so scary out there with those clear roads and sunny skies, but but it was good. I'm happy for the kids, the USC students. They looked like they had a lot of fun from what I saw.
I gotta say,
But it's just like struggling because it was just like you're just mud.
they were
you're
yes.
you're sledding
I was
on
gonna
mud,
say,
basically.
I was gonna say all the sledding vids very brown.
Yeah.
very brown. They were forcing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Act like you've been there.
Some of those hills, though.
If you just waited till 10 or 11,
Would've been good.
It would have been good,
They
but
couldn't
you
help
had
it.
to force it at 7 p.m.
reminds me of our sledding days back at Kent State University, where it actually would snow.
Oh, it's snow, yeah.
Actual snow
Yeah.
on the ground.
Yeah.
And we get the cafeteria trays and do it
Yeah.
outside of our
And you bomb a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. We would go to in Jersey.
sled that much?
We could go to like the golf courses that
Yeah.
have big.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and we get chased off, and you'd be like, "Why? What does it matter?"
You're not.
There's
I mean, it's
3 feet of snow.
You're not
We're not
tearing it
ruining
up.
the golf course. Yeah.
You're very much not even like, we're not, we're not sledding on the greens here.
I remember one year, my dad got he got one of those real sleds that you could sort of steer with your feet.
Metal rails.
Yes, metal rails. And we lived on a hill, and he dragged me down a certain distance. Then he just let me go.
See ya.
And I slammed into the curb so hard. I think it felt like I flew 12 feet through the air, and I was hurt. I was small. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and he's just laughing so hard at me, bleeding in the snow.
Expecting you to know what to do. And you're just like, okay, I'm going.
Absolutely wiped
Not
out.
understanding physics.
Speaking of being a father myself, okay, so I
Yes.
woke up Sunday to Caitlin going, "Oh my God, AJ, our hot water was not working.
Oh, my God.
The hot water pipe froze.
Fear.
It didn't burst, it froze, okay? And so then what I did, as any good MacGyver would,
you.
okay, I took Caitlin's oldest hair dryer
That's why you
of all
keep them
time.
around. That's why you keep them around.
I would say a circa 2001 Conair.
A lot of regulations have come on since,
Exactly,
right?
correct. Yeah, it's not good for the environment. But I'll
Or
tell you what
the
it's good
hair.
for, okay? Melting frozen pipes. Because I took that sucker outside, plugged it in, I rigged it up so it was just pointing at the hot water pipe, and I let it run for over 3 hours straight. It didn't shut off. When I went out and checked every single time, it was blowing hot. And
It's like 28 degrees outside. It's
I'll
like freezing.
Tell you what, that pipe unfroze. So shout out Conair.
So
The movie also.
what did we say? We're gonna gonna round up a bunch of hair dryers
Yeah.
and open up an HVAC.
Yeah, get an HVAC business, but it's just a van filled with hair dryers. Yeah.
That's all they got going on.
Ooh, I don't know if I can solve this one. I got a hair dryer.
Well, my pipe burst. Can you do anything about that? No, we're actually more of a proactive service.
Yeah, no, I could rig a hair dryer up for you. Yeah.
We can dry your house out with a dozen hair dryers.
Yeah, it worked though. It worked. It was real good.
I've been dripping. We've been dripping the faucets.
So yeah,
so good so far.
I dripped last night. Dripped hard, babe.
Yeah.
And so it worked. But I also don't think it got as cold as we all thought.
Yeah.
But also, coming from growing up in a place that was always actually cold, we're talking 0 degrees, sub-0 degrees. These were not ever conversations I ever had. Like,
we never did that.
We talk about drips. I grew up with so many overbearing Italian mothers. They would have loved to guilt you about dripping your pipes, and they never did.
We had insulation. We had basements. We didn't have crawl spaces. That's the difference.
I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, now I just live in fear of it because I'm like, oh boy, but I got that renter's insurance. So like, oh no, I gotta get a new wardrobe because the pipe burst.
Yeah, no, I had $1,000 suits in here, 6 or 7 of them. Yeah,
All our
irreplaceable. Yeah, irreplaceable stuff.
But no, yeah, so good so far, and hopefully we can just get through this. I'm done with this warm. And again, not to harp on it, but this is what you guys get when you talk. I love fall. Fall's here.
Correct.
This is what I'm talking about right here.
This doesn't happen in summer hours.
No,
folks.
you're not taking.
It doesn't happen in summer
You're
hours.
not taking your blowtorch blow dryer outside.
Yes.
Though you are losing AC.
And I gotta say, folks, I would love Mother Nature. I would love for this to stop.
Please.
I've had 2 weekends with 2 children, and I have 2 3-day weekends with no daycare on Monday.
Yes.
Today, it's sunny and everything is melted. We could have easily gone to school today, and they canceled everything on Friday midday. Folks, calm down.
Yes.
Okay, calm down.
We're back in the low to mid 50s this week, with the lows being in right around freezing.
Did you guys think you were going to get weather on this episode?
I just want to give you a quick recap. And then also, if you guys are having a crazy Super Bowl party, your Super Bowl Sundays will look pretty good, partly cloudy with 54 degrees. And it could be right above freezing at nighttime, but, dress warmly even though you're not on the field there.
God, look at the value you get on this podcast, folks. Anyway, Gavin, the only more value you could give is the credits.
Sunrise is coming at 7:24 these days, guys. How great is that? And sunset's almost 6 o'clock. Wow.
Look it up,
Welcome
folks.
back. Welcome to February, folks.
Look it up, folks. Okay,
Welcome
Gavin.
back.
Go ahead. Say bye-bye.
Holy cow. That's some great information right there. Give us a shout, 803-563-7169. Let us know your favorite. We had that blue moon, too, didn't we? Oh, boy. What a time to be alive for meteorological events going on here in South Carolina. You can also stay up to date with the latest news on SCETV.org and SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PureX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina. So Cars, it's just Big Dragon, basically.
It's Big Dragon. Dragons hoard. If I know anything about dragons, they hoard riches.
It's crazy like that. It's kind of crazy like that.